Good afternoon. Dear panelists, welcome to sunny Armenia. And it's a pleasure and it's an honor for me to moderate this panel. I'm Viktoria Poghosyan, representing Philip Morris Armenia in a capacity of external affairs. So, at our company, we are dedicated to embracing responsible innovation and engaging in global dialogues to shape ethical governance in an increasingly digital world. And today's panel brings together diverse perspectives to address the critical challenges of regulating the social media, combating misinformation, and integrating AI-driven solutions while upholding accountability and trust. In this digital era, we see that the time is really fast, the changes are fast, the information flow is huge, and we need to try to have the more clear policies on the misinformation, on dividing the, let's say, more transparency and the manipulation. So let's find out from the different perspectives what we have nowadays. So, and dear guests, I would like to introduce our esteemed panelists. So Tatjana Macura, the Minister in charge of gender equality, prevention of the home-based violence, and political and economical empowerment of women in Serbia. Thank you for joining us. Mr. Ararat Ghukasyan, First Deputy Chairman, Management Board, the Unibank, Armenia. Thank you. Baratang Miya, founder, Women in Internet Governance, South Africa. Thank you so much for joining. And Scott Cunningham, co-founder and CEO, SDGuild, the United States. Thank you, Scott. So, before we start, I would like to introduce a bit the structure of the panel. And we will have the round of questions. Around, like, each panelist will have 7-10 minutes, and we have also the backup questions, so I prepared well. And after that, we will open the floor for 2-3 questions from the audience. So let's start with Tatjana. And I did quite research on Serbia. And I would like to say that Serbia has taken steps towards gender equality in governance, and can it be tailored, for example, and we will be happy to hear, can you share with us the examples and what will be the recommendation, the countries like Armenia or the others? Also, we are interested in that, look, the misinformation on social media can erode public trust, particularly among women who face targeted online abuse. And we are interested, does Serbia employ any strategies to build public confidence in digital governance policies that regulate social media? And how can these strategies incorporate the gender-sensitive approaches to ensure women feel safe and empowered?
Thank you, Viktoria, for these questions. Thank you to the government of the Republic of Armenia for calling us to participate in this very important forum in Yerevan. Also, I'm thanking you for opening this very important topic as a special panel. And I'm hoping that you can maybe it's too much to say, but that you can learn from us and our good practice, how you can implement some good stuffs in your states. Serbia, I don't know, do you know that? But Serbia is the only state in the Western Balkan, but not only on the Western Balkan and also broader than the Western Balkan, to have a minister who is in charge of gender equality, prevention of domestic violence, and political and economic empowerment of women. So you can imagine how important this question is, although sometimes in all of our states that doesn't look that way. Before that, we had a coordinating body for the gender equality, and I am hoping that we will establish it once again, because we just had a new government a few weeks ago. So I am now working on that issue also. So I presume that this is one model of a good practice that can be implemented in the other states. It's very important to have someone in the government who is dealing with the gender equality, but not only with the women's issue. It's very important to work on also men's issue in some other areas, because sometimes we are, don't use on the right way a form of gender equality. Many people think that we are only dealing with the women's rights, but no, we are dealing both women's and men's rights. So it's very important for me to work on the both paths at the same time. I was also member of the government before this situation that we had a few weeks ago. So in the last period, I was dealing a lot with the prevention of on violence that involves women and children also. You mentioned what is in my portfolio, but beside that, I'm also coordinating activities on the national mechanism that prevents violence on children. Not only that we are dealing with victims of violence, we are dealing with all forms of violence that includes children. So we do have one digital asset that is dealing with these important things. So I'm also coordinating these activities. You asked me something about the legislative. I'm not very I'm not sure actually that we do have different experiences than any other state in the world, not only in Europe, not only on any other continent specifically, because these changes in modern technologies are too fast to be supported with legislative rules. So we are trying our best to do something that can prevent violence or misuse of modern technologies. And many of us knows how much we work on these issues, but are we satisfied? We are not satisfied, and that's why we think that it's not only the legislative that we need to change. We need to act and to be reactive on some other ways, especially in education and providing the right form of information and teaching our youngs to find the right information and how to read all of these information, which can be very often misused in this sphere. So at this moment, we are having this platform that I mentioned that involves children, and on that platform, victims of violence or anybody who knows that somebody else is experiencing violence can report the violence at the platform. But beside that, that is also an informative and educational platform for children. It's established in Serbia 2 years ago after we had a mass shooting. I don't know if you know for that situation. I presume that everyone in this room knows about that situation. 2 years ago, we had a mass shooting in elementary school in Belgrade. So after that, we opened this platform for public, and anyone can report the violence or inform themselves and educate themselves on these issues. So although the motivation was not something that we are proud of, we are very proud on how that actually is working now. This is the platform that works with the 7 different ministries. So that's why we need a coordinator. And for example, those are Ministry of Education, Ministry of Interior Affairs, Ministry of Health, Ministry of information and technologies. Maybe I will forget someone, but it's important to have the place which is secure for everyone who wants to know more or who has a problem. And if the person who is reporting the violence doesn't know how it can be, to which institution it needs to be reported, it's enough that you leave the information there, and we have a triage center who will do it for you and inform you what's the reaction on that. So we are now trying to regulate in legislative as much as we can. For example, we are planning to make some changes in criminal code and to recognize the digital violence as a separate offense. And I'm hoping that we will see that by the end of this year. And we are also trying to change in some articles law on prevention of violence, domestic violence. So I hope that this would be simultaneously provided in this poll.
Thank you. It's quite interesting, and thank you for sharing the experience. And I think you are using some AI tools to prevent it. From the opposite side, also, we saw that they are also using the AI tools. And I think this is a very important part that the government of Serbia is trying to mitigate the risks and try to give more, let's say, correct information, and not only for women, but also for men and for children. So thank you very much. We will come back with the other questions. Ararat, now we come to Armenia. So, with Armenia's financial sector increasingly reliant on digital platforms, how can banks like Unibank work with the regulators to ensure that data harvesting is governed to protect consumer financial data, especially in cross-border transactions, without hindering economic innovation? And we know that AI is also AI is everywhere now. It's in our lives, and how the financial sector is operating in that case.
Thank you for the question, Viktoria. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm coming from banking, a simple banker, nothing sophisticated. Banking always has been about trust. It is about the trust and will be about trust. And when we are talking about social data, big data, the key here is how you harvest this data and how you use them. It can have very positive outcome and good for the society, as well as it can have very negative implications for the clients and the banks. The first rule is to differentiate between information which is public and information which belongs to the private domain. For private domain in Armenia, there is a law on banking secrecy and law on private data. You cannot use personal data without customers' consent. So that is a must. It's required. And therefore, when you try to obtain that agreement, you are becoming more careful and more responsible how you use it. Therefore, it's very important to understand what will be the impact for the members of the society. Because we have, for example, let's take the Industrial Revolution back in early 19th century. The clients and profiling started then. The people started to target the institutions, financial institutions, for example, started to target different parts of the society, being migrant workers or national minorities. With the information advancement and with big data availability, the profiling is narrowing. It's becoming more and more narrow and specific. This is what certain scientists call personalization of the finance. When you go up to your client's home and try to understand what Mr. X wants. So in this case, it's very important to understand that you are not breaching the personal boundaries. Role of regulator is in defining those boundaries within which we can work. And here, let me try to be a little bit pro-banking in terms of, we all know that the government is coming with some regulations and rules on behalf of society and trying to impose their implementation. I personally believe that the government not only should punish for non-compliance with rules and regulations, but in 21st century, the government must reward the compliance. It's not enough just to be a compliant financial institution in obtaining customer data in a correct way. You have to do one more extra step and try to encourage more transparency from society. If we take the example of Armenia and average European country, in Europe, the level of transparency is significantly higher than in Armenia. So what is the society's gain? What are they gaining? Higher access to the financial services. So there is a cost which each of us, each member of society should understand. If we want to have a higher transparency, lower cost for finance, better services, we need to share part of our information and made it available to the other market players, including financial institutions. But that has to be done in a clever and responsible manner. There is one element which I would like to bring to your example. It's our bank. Unibank is a universal bank license in Armenia, working for 25 years. We started, as Viktoria mentioned, AI-based scoring model, which is making a decision about clients' creditworthiness within minutes. So the level of, let's say, the loan which was approved by the system with no human interaction, it used to be $5,000, equivalent of 5,000. Within 2 years, we increased it to 10,000. The portfolio's behavior is better than the average portfolio. The volumes are good, and we would like to increase it further. So one might say, so why are you not increasing? Well, we can, but for us to do that, we need a cooperation from society. We need higher transparency from our businesses. We need higher transparency from our individuals. They need to share part of their personal data, income-related data, with banks. Today, we make a decision based on the credit history of the client. Tomorrow, we might be making decisions based on behavior of the client. This is a very unknown path, but this is the future. So we will reach to that level, but we can reach in a positive manner if there will be a cooperation from all members of the society, and hopefully we will not make any mistakes, and next time when we will meet, after some time, we can speak about the better results. So the big data, in my opinion, and the harvesting process is about using information which is available in the market in a good manner, converting that into digital data which is categorized, which is classified, and which is implemented in systems for bringing good to the people. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing the Armenian experience. And Baratang, am I correct? So I have a question for you as well. In South Africa, where digital access is uneven, how can regulatory frameworks ensure that social media platforms protect vulnerable groups, such as women and youth, from harmful content like online harassment, while promoting inclusive access to economic opportunities in the tech sector?
Thank you very much. I guess South Africa's gender-based violence is something that's really concerning. Forgetting about social media or anything that's very tech, the culture on its own needs to be addressed. So before I talk about that, I had to speak about culture. I think culture gets baked into technology. And whether it's in South Africa, whether it's anywhere in the world, mainly the culture of tech came from the US. And now you find the culture of South Africa that's very masochistic, where men have always thought they have a right over a woman's body. It's just going to perpetuate the two. And now coming back to tech is, for me, is how programming has been happening throughout the process. Think about big tech like Google. Google was programmed using the traditional programming method. So the algorithm there is very straightforward. If you do this, this happened. If this happens, then do this. It's very straightforward. It's simple. It can be fixed. If they made a mistake and they baked in the bias there, they can reverse it. But it depends on who's challenging them to reverse that process, because it's now big data at the moment. Then, it's going to take a while for small countries like South Africa to challenge a big organization like Google, because when we say, how can South Africa, we're literally saying, how can South Africa play on an international platform to change the rules that are against women? And how can the bias that was baked in to discriminate against the vulnerable communities be changed? So for me, it's at a higher level. We should be playing at an international level as South Africa. We should be trying very hard to make sure that the judicial system knows when it's wrong or right. When rules are implemented, now we have the GDC, the Global Dialogue. It's got some frameworks there. And for us, we need to take what was decided at that high level and try to implement it at the local level. With social media there's a monster that needs to be addressed if you look at it from that perspective. And if you know how it can benefit the society, so I'm going to focus on how it can benefit women instead of focusing what AI is doing at the moment towards women. I think I work with women in internet governance, and I started Girlhype 20 years ago. And the reason I started Girlhype was purely to address issues like this. So if we're going to use social media to advance women, we need to make sure that women are the ones that are paying for the marketing adverts on there. And you know what? They might not have the budget, but these companies should give organizations like Girlhype that works with women and girls the budget to promote ourselves and promote positive content that's not going to harm women and girls. And that's not going to perpetuate the stereotypes that are already out there. With social media, you have an opportunity to change the landscape if it's framed, worked properly, and the organizations that are busy doing the work to alleviate gender-based violence are supported to promote positive messages that will encourage women and girls to take a stand. Because at the moment, it's all about taking a stand and taking a lead and being in the room and saying the right messages. If we're not there, gender-based violence will perpetuate.
I think the good point was that you mentioned that we should use the tools and AI innovations to bring the new mindset in the South Africa, to educate people, to try to help, and to give the transparency, which will, of course, give the country economy also to raise it, I think. So thank you so much. And Scott, hi again.
Hi.
So SDGuild is a global initiative focused on developing and promoting interoperable standards to support the achievements of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Am I right?
You are right.
Great. It brings together stakeholders from the sector, governments, private industry, and also the NGOs and youth leaders to create the unified framework for measuring and advancing sustainability efforts. What are the most significant challenges in creating global standards for AI-driven content moderation, and how can they be overcome to enhance transparency and accountability in tackling misinformation? Thank you.
Thanks, Victoria. Before I answer that, I first want to comment on a few things that were said by my fellow panelists. Baratang mentioned how can a smaller country, smaller market like South Africa play on the global stage, right? And, not have to do whatever Google or Facebook or whoever tells you to do. And that's an interesting question, because companies are driven by profit and they're driven by their share price. And so if a smaller country or a smaller market makes it difficult to do business, the company will just say, well, we're going to not do that and we're going to pull out and do business elsewhere, right? And so some of the things that I'm big and I focus on are collaboration, and I'll talk about that as I answer the question that was asked. But I think that's the way that smaller countries and smaller markets have power, is by creating collaboration, whether it's through traditional defense alliances or something like this, where it's a more economic alliance, where smaller countries can agree on standards of things that they want and they need from these large companies. And with enough of those smaller countries, you have big enough power to be able to get what you want, right? So I believe AI is about collaboration. AI should not be about America first, because when things are America first, it's not humanity first. And AI absolutely should be humanity first. So going back to the question about the biggest challenges around standards, tough question. But the good thing is, this isn't new, right? Humanity, since we came out of caves, have followed and chased innovation. So my co-founder she started this industry called CRM. It's a multi-trillion-dollar industry now. And she was also in the very early days of the internet. And in the early days of the internet, she describes it as the Wild West, right? You had companies that were building using their own rules, using their own tools, using their own platforms, and there really wasn't any sort of central form of collaboration. For example, email protocols were a mess. You could send an email from one solution, but if someone wasn't using that same solution, that email wouldn't be delivered, right? Until a number of key stakeholders came together and they created a protocol called SMTP, which basically allowed emails to be delivered no matter where they were sent from, right? So that collaboration is sort of taken for granted today. Any of us can pull out our phone and send an email, and we can trust it's going to be delivered. But that standard didn't just solve technical problems. What it did, though, is it built trust in global partnerships and global frameworks, and really paved the way for future global collaboration. So I think we're facing those same challenges today with AI. It's chaos right now, and in many ways, the stakes are even higher because misinformation and damaging content can be disseminated globally virtually instantaneously. So there's three main challenges that I see, and the first two are directly related to AI testing and training and accessibility. So first is language. I mentioned sort of this America First mentality that the world and different countries are proceeding down the path of nationalism. English, Mandarin, Spanish, maybe Korean. You have large language models that are very proficient in these languages. But what about Armenian? What about Zulu or Swahili, right? When LLMs aren't proficient in a language, it creates a gap. And within those gaps, there's risk that the issues that we have around moderation and misinformation, in those areas, in those gaps, that's where those things can thrive. The second sort of related is around culture and the context of cultures, because they're very different. In one place, something that's a joke or a meme could be seen as funny. In another area, that same piece of content could be flagged as unsafe. And so AI systems really aren't trained normally to understand and differentiate between the cultures and the regions that they're working in. And that leads to many times over-moderation, and on the flip side, sometimes leads to under-moderation. And then last, the third biggest challenge, I think, is fragmentation of systems. So you've got TikTok, you've got X, you've got Instagram, you have YouTube, right? These are all organizations that are working in silos and for profit. But they all have AI systems that are used to find threat information on their platforms. And most of the time, they're finding the same threats. They're finding the same misinformation campaigns, but they're not sharing that information, right? It's like a group of firefighters all working to fight the same fire, but they're not sharing their plans together. That doesn't make sense. So I think the first step to solving these problems comes around training data, like I mentioned. The multilingual AI models, as well as ensuring that the LLMs have deeply localized insights so that the models become more personalized and more localized. And then second is that full interoperability. Just like the email protocols, we need frameworks that allow these platforms to exchange information about harmful content securely, transparently, and in a way that is deeply collaborative. So the bottom line is, again, just like in the early days of the internet, this isn't only a technical problem, it's really a human collaboration issue. And the good news is that we are well on our way to developing these frameworks already for transparent, fair, and effective AI moderation. But now we're at the point that we really need to make sure that these frameworks are scaled and adopted globally as well.
So, thank you. We'll talk about the standards, and I think everyone is agreed that each country needs some customized standards and the policy making, because we need to also think about the culture, the mindset, the level of the, I think, the transparency and different things. And also, I think we need some AI tools to try to protect also. This is the very important thing. And the hard part is that there is no one unified approach. Everything should be customized. For example, in Serbia, you are doing a huge steps towards that. In Armenia, in financial sector, for the misinformation, for the consumers, for the customers, with different like influential tools and tactics with the AI. And we all know, even in South Africa, using the tool to help the people to be more for women to moving ahead, and for the US, who is trying all the time somehow to bring the standards, but it still needs a space to grow, I think. And look, we have, I think, 10 minutes, and if there, we will open for questions if we have, and I think we have, and please, before the question, the name also. Can we have a mic?
Hi, my name is Jatin. I'm one of the ORF US India AI Fellows. My question is, so I'm doing a research on AI fairness. Okay, so I heard things about AI being used for loan scoring, right? I want to understand that there's a large digital divide in countries like Armenia or in developing countries like India as well, right? So the rural population might not have digital presence online. They won't have access to past transactions or banking, access to banking, etc., right? Then there are other things. So in developing such AI systems for loan scoring, how do you ensure that there's no bias? For example, you're not rejecting applications from the rural region You're not preferring salaried young males over rural elderly females just because they don't have digital presence. And you need such digital data to make decisions.
I think we are blessed somehow because in Armenia back in 2002 or 3, we created a credit register for the whole country. So almost every citizen of Armenia has a footprint there. So there's a credit history and how you behave yourself. So from that point of view, of course, the size of Armenia is not comparable with India. So we are blessed from that point of view that by having a national credit register system, we ensure that every citizen has some kind of information available there, which is removing the biased approach and the chance of excluding some part of the society. However, when we introduced the credit scoring in our bank, we used our existing customer data for machine learning. If you ask me how the AI system makes decision, to be honest, I don't know. And this nobody knows in a bank because it's a secret. It's a black box. We are not allowed to know on what basis system makes decisions. We just decided the parameters within which decisions should be made, either yes or no, and what are the cases, what are the so-called stop factors. So based on, so after that, the machine is learning itself. And after every 6 months, when it is taking another learning step, so it becomes more professional and more confidence in making its decisions. Of course, there is another approach, which is a post-factum checking, when we check on a random basis what are the applications which has been rejected. The rule number 1 is never review the application which has been rejected. That is the rule number 1, because that will affect machines' thinking. But based on what we are reviewing and discovering, we make decisions and changes to the system for future. Is that a perfect approach? I don't know. The clients and market will show. If we are doing a good job and if our system is fair, we will have more clients. If not, then we have to learn.
I think we have also reflect.
Yeah, so first, Ararat, I would disagree slightly on one thing. I think there is a detriment to having the AI operate in a black box. I think that's an incredible risk to humanity if we allow AI to operate in the black box. That transparency is incredibly important. And then to the gentleman's question as well, the first part of your question was really around infrastructure, right? How do we make sure that the world has connectivity? There's still hundreds of millions of people that don't have connectivity. So there's the good thing is, like, the ITU has a lot of initiatives focused on DPI, the digital public infrastructure, and actually working to create internet as a public good as well. So that starts by first giving people access to the tools and to the technology so that they can start to have a digital footprint. But the other thing is, there will be pioneers. You know, a woman from rural Armenia who's never had any digital footprint, but a loan was approved, right? And if the algorithm and the AI is built correctly, it will be able to use sort of the lookalike characteristics to be able to approve someone else in a similar way.
I'm Zainab Kamouni, a Lebanese young fellow with the Yerevan Dialogue. So I have a follow-up question on my colleague's question. Is there any accountability measure that you are implementing to prevent those algorithm bias? And what do you suggest for what do you suggest for the other panelists for accountability measure, examples of accountability measure to prevent such biases? Thank you.
Ararat, I think this question is again to you.
Okay, first of all, thank you for disagreeing, Scott, because that's about the integrity and transparency. We don't need to agree on everything together. Okay, when we say we don't know what's happening inside the box, I am lying, because when you define the parameters, so within the parameters, the parameters machine can operate. And we all understand the devil is in details. So we all understand that if you do not define the parameters, so you don't know what will be the outcome. But when I say that we don't know what happens, I'm correct. And I believe that's a correct answer, because you don't know on what basis this or that application has been declined, because combination of variables. It might be credit history, education, but there is one thing: sex, marital status, religions. They are not parameters in our system. They are not in our system as a parameters. High education is a parameter because usually people with higher education tend to be more disciplined. In terms of how to ensure, the question was about that there is not a biased approach. Keep on reviewing. Review, learning. In machine, we ourselves are learning alongside with our machine.
The thing is, women have been disadvantaged for generations after generations, till today. So when he's speaking, I'm listening to him and thinking, I wonder how many people are educated, how many women will fit that profile of the algorithm that's been trained and that's sitting there in a black box with no correction. I think we cannot do that. We can't just leave it to its own device to decide for the society. We need maybe human AI, because this AI is still going to perpetuate what's there.
We need well-trained AI.
Well-trained human AI so we need systems to answer him. Let's say in India, I know that most women are not educated because I'm always there. So we need systems that will say, if the system is discriminating against women, there are verifiers out here who can say, prior to it becoming an epidemic and becoming dangerous, without it being there, this human AI can say, hey, let's stop this, create something better.
Thank you. Scott?
So without transparency, you can't have accountability, right? So that's the first thing I'll say. And generally, I find that a lot of times the technical leadership at large organizations want to have that level of transparency, but it's normally a chief legal or chief risk officer that shuts that down, because there is risk then when someone finds a bias that, an insurance company or whoever will be liable. The other thing that has started becoming more prevalent is what's called chain of thought, where you can actually follow the thought process of the AI and the algorithm. And that's something that it lends to the transparency. And if the bank's not doing already, I think would be great to look into.
Okay, thank you so much for your remarks and comments. So we have a question from the audience.
I'm Gyan, a lawyer from India, here with Observatory on Information and Democracy. My question is also to you, Ararat. I'm really sorry. First of all, I joined the previous two questions that were raised, but my question is slightly different. Why is there an increasing need and reliance on digital data to be created and then shared with the banks? I'm thinking of the potential risks of maybe surveillance, or the intentional ones, that is by sharing this with third and fourth parties. How do you protect that data and safely process it?
Thank you for the question. I think the need for data is coming from a single reason: to make more money. And I'm honest with you, the driving force behind humanity has been profit. So first you have to make money to pay your employees, to become a good, valuable member of the society, to pay taxes, to participate in corporate social responsibility events, etc. And the growth of information technology, the availability of vast data, it forces banks to implement big data. Otherwise, you cannot compete. You cannot process $100 loan using a credit officer on one-on-one meeting with an applicant. That is something which was done probably in 18th, 19th century. It's too expensive, it's costly. Today, to achieve the same level of, let's say, profitability, you need to go for automation. You need to go for computers, you need to go for big data. Otherwise, if you just buy nice computers and put there without implementing, without putting the procedures for approval, etc., one day you will find out that your cost is increasing. And you will find out that technology didn't help you. So all of that is about reducing cost and becoming more profitable, and naturally also to be unbiased, as the question was raised, because it's very important for us to ensure that with two individuals with the same data are receiving the same treatment. It is yes for both of them, or it is no for both of them. So it's about fairness, it's about the transparency, and of course, let's say, we might think the danger which is there and think about Arnold Schwarzenegger's I'll Be Back, but the life is about that, is about cutting the costs.
Thank you, Ararat. And we have the last question, and then we'll have a small reflection on that. Thank you.
My name is Misha Đurković. I come from Serbia as well as our minister. And I was until recently leading a project with a colleague on ethical and legal problems connected with AI, actually. So I definitely need to deeply disagree and protest, if you allow me, to this kind of presence in which you are saying that actually money, how should I say, profit is everything we should follow on. As a citizen, as a scientist, academician, and so on, I want democratic politics and politicians who will protect me from the bankers and companies, who, of course, are basing everything on the profit, no matter on the cost, on society, and so on. So exactly this is the thing, and apart from a little bit, I'm joking in the sense that we're in a war, but actually this is very big problem. What I wanted to tell you were very precisely pointed out what is the tendency, and the tendency is even worse. For example, Jacques Attali, the famous French thinker, thinks that in the future insurance companies will be the most important and the most profitable, because they will do this on a every moment basis, when we will be forced to accept the contracts in which we will allow the banking companies and insurance companies to follow our health on, every second basis, to know everything about us in order that they can apply that and adapt insurance policy and so on. But this is going to be a hell. And that's why I just wanted to point out there is a massive wave actually of using regulation, especially in USA. Already there are the first sentences in which it was forbidden to use AI, for example, for social security services, because it showed up that they were very badly miscalculating, and many people were exactly worse off because machines couldn't do, as Scott said, without checking. Then also there were tries to implement them into judiciary, and it is being slowly also banned in many states. Also, the third very dangerous case is, for example, about leaving people at parole, which was given to machines to calculate and again miscalculate. So my point is actually, I deeply understand what you've been saying, and just to mention Shoshana Zuboff's famous book about surveillance capitalism, in which you had the case where Mattel and Google wanted not only to use the dolls to get the data out of the children, but also to put senders and to make the profit out of the children's surveillance homes. So we are de facto, you're very right, we have to use AI in many ways, but on the other hand, we really have to develop our capacities to prevent actually banks, and insurance companies and the big data company to do whatever they want with us. For example, and I'm finishing with this, many people don't know that actually Google, while going around and taking the data for Google Street View, was not only pillaging the data of our, pictures, images, they were actually pillaging everything that we had on our computers in between. They were just picking up all the data without any permission. Thank you very much, and I'm excusing for a longer call.
No, thank you very much, and thank you. I think we can have a very quick reflection because we need to deliver our last message to the society as well.
Okay, thank you. I'll be very short. Thank you for your statement. As I said, we were forced to use that, and I do not regret that we are using that because this is about the technology. But as I said initially, there are two types of information, private and public domain information. For credit decision making, it's regulated highly by the law of Republic of Armenia. We are not using the data which are available on social networks and which are available, let's say, through different systems. The client's consent is required, and this is only about the client's credit history. So let's be sure. This is what we are doing. It's not about abusing data, etc. And of course, there is a need for having a control over every type of economic activity, and I think that's normal. Nobody says anything about that. And the reason I didn't mention that everything is about money, our guest asked me a question, what forced bank to go into that direction? And I didn't want to give a very politically correct answer. I just gave a fair answer. This is about money. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who has want to have some reflection on?
For me, it's access. You can put out as much tech as you want. If you have inequality of who's using it and who doesn't have access, you will never change what's happening in the world. We need access, and the inequality must end. I don't know about Armenia, who has access to internet and who doesn't, because at the moment is the elite solving elite problems, coming up with regulations, while the masses are left behind and AI is busy drafting rules that favors the elites.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. So, thank you for the questions from the audience. And look, nowadays, I come a bit for the social media and we will close the panel. Misinformation of the fake news are challenging issues. I think everyone is agree with that. And I don't know, is there any solution to approach, to have the worldwide approach to mitigate the harm of disinformation and fake news? Because it's really hurting the society, all this misinformation. It's ruining the economies. It's disrupting, can disrupt everything. So I would like just to hear from you your messages to the society in that context. Everyone, just very quick, small, but your message to society.
I think it's precious that we share informations between our countries and also to share experiences and to learn from mistakes from that we all make. But I was very motivated with this question from Misha before, because I don't think that we are now talking on a data-driven economy. Profit-driven economy is what we are actually speaking about, and maybe we need to inform the youth. I think that is the future, how to learn how to actually see these news and informations that they are given to them, and also what are they accepting when they are accepting some rules by going to the bank or having an access on some social media. I think that people are not reading what is in front of them, and that's why those informations are misused, and we are easily targeted by marketing. Yes, by marketing and everything else. So I think that education in this field is probably the most important. So these kind of events and media needs to be much more supportive to these topics, not to use these topics to also mislead consumers, but to inform why it's important to have real and right information in front of us.
Thank you, Tatjana. I think the education, yes. Ararat?
I couldn't agree more with dear Minister that yes, education is the most important thing to give to our society. How to fight the misinformation is to build a cooperation between companies, between industries, and between nations. And a lot of developments are happening on tax evasion, on income disclosure, on different, and among different segments of economy, the level is varies. For example, in financial segment, it's very strict. You give a wrong information to your partner, they will never come back to you, and you will be banned from many. So that is the basis, to be transparent, to be cooperative with your colleagues, both in, let's say, national level, as well as on, let's say, between the industries, regardless whether they operate in the same country or not. That is the key for the success and fighting misinformation.
Thank you so much. Baratang?
I think most platforms really don't disclose how their algorithms work. And this proprietary secrets that they have, that is like they are cheap to making money, profits, it's not a good thing. We really need to start hammering on that, and especially for Africa. I like what you said about collaborations. The AU needs to start coming up with a very strong statement. We shouldn't just be following what the EU is saying, because that's what we do. We take most of our regulations there. We need to come up with our own that are so standardized to Africa, where Africa is respected, our culture is not taken down by or targeted by the internet in terms of misinformation. I'm trying so hard to not say we just targeted a moment as South Africa. I have to say it, and we targeted by a very powerful country, and that's not correct. And I think it shouldn't be South Africa alone saying this is misinformation. It should be the whole AU, the whole Africa, 54 countries coming together and saying you cannot target one African country. Because it might start as gender, then it goes to the Africa as an economy of our economy is going down because somebody said something. We really need to work on it and standardize regulations. These proprietary secrets should come to an end. They should be open.
Thank you. And Scott, please.
Quick. So misinformation, hate speech, those types of things, I think it really comes down to humanity having a lack of compassion, right? There's IQ, there's EQ. Now UNESCO has partnered with the Satyarthi Movement for Global Compassion to create the CQ, or the compassion quotient, to actually start measuring human compassion. So I would ask all of you, find out more, follow the Satyarthi Movement on global compassion. And as an example, if we could rate a statement by a powerful global leader on the level of truth as well as the level of compassion, I think people would look at that statement much differently.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure and honor to be with you on the stage. And thank you, the audience. I think we need a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much. So this is for these days, and thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to having us on this one platform and discussing the important topics which will bring the, let's say, impact on our generations. Thank you so much.